All right, guys, I'm about to show you a secret trick that I've been using now in FL Studio for over a decade. And honestly, I thought everybody used this and made music this way. And it wasn't until I started getting in the studio with people that I realized that a lot of people weren't doing this. They were asking me, they're like,
dude, how are you chopping the samples that fast?
And I realized that a lot of people didn't actually know about it. And I actually discovered it on accident. I was hitting a shortcut for this secret tool. And I was like, why is my computer messing up? Like, you know, in FL, like some random shortcut turns on. And then finally I started playing around with it. And honestly, it has changed the way I make music. The past decade, I've been using this nonstop. So yeah, today I'm gonna show you guys this trick. It actually is a combination of two different tools and a little bit of sample selection to really get the most out of it. And by the way, for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Steven. I'm the co-founder of Cymatics.fm. You know, our sounds have been used by everybody from Drake, Bad Bunny, Roddy Ricch, Meg Thee Stallion, and I've run a production team of about 40 people for quite a while. Anyways, let's get into it. Okay, so before I show you this tool, I just have to lay down some basic chords in a drum pattern. That's pretty solid. Okay, so the next thing we need is really an acapella. You can do this with a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna show examples how you can do it with a guitar, percussion loop. So the first thing I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna take an acapella. Yo, my bad, your talking's fucking me up. Can y'all be quiet for a minute? Homie's in the office fucking me up. Here we go, we have an acapella.
Sometimes you just feel like you don't belong if you did before.
So we got our acapella, we got our chords. The next thing we're gonna be doing is that we're gonna be swapping between the slice tool and the slip tool. When you click S, now when you try to drag the sample, what happens is the actual positioning of the sample doesn't move, but you can move within that to change the positioning of the actual sample. And that's okay, you know, it's cool for micro adjustments. And also, by the way, if you hold Alt, it won't snap. So that's cool, but if you combine it by switching back and forth between the blade tool, what we can start doing is, let's say if I isolate a little piece like this, I can use the slip tool, but only for this specific thing. So now what I'm gonna be able to do is I'm gonna be able to write a new melody out of that. So let's go ahead and start playing around with it and see if we can create a new melody out of that acapella. So stage one is kind of just like taking it and trying to look for new melodies, because this is essentially like a top line melody. The first stage of what I'm doing, I don't even know what it's gonna sound like. I'm just searching, okay? This is one of those strategies where I'm just looking for something. I don't necessarily know what the outcome is gonna be. I mean, honestly, that's already pretty solid, you know? And something important to think about is that you can do this trick, duplicate it, and then over here on this new version, if you just highlight the entire thing, hit the slip tool, I can actually slide everything. Look at this. There's so many different combinations of vocal chops that you could do with this trick. So I can like take it and be like, okay, I like that part, I don't like this part. And I can start taking this little piece and kind of like slipping it. I'm like, okay. I like to cut it a lot of times on fourths to get started. Like I said, you can go in here and play literally non-stop and just look for like tons of it. I mean, you can, in theory, just keep duplicating this out. I've even done it sometimes where I just click random spots. I'm highlighting random spots. And then I'm just dragging and I'm just randomizing the actual outcome. So sometimes I do it like this too, where I'm just scanning essentially. And what I would do is I would just build an idea off this main vocal. A couple other things you can do at that point, I'll usually start to do a little bit of processing on it, right? I just throw in some like basic shit like reverb, delay. After I find like one main good pattern, another way to kind of like get more out of this, because it can be very busy, right? So if you have a lead chopping, it's going to take a lot of space in the song, right? It's going to essentially act as a very active lead. And sometimes the magic in music is actually when there's not sound happening, right? So something I'll do is when I add like a delay reverb, sometimes I'll just delete little parts. As you can see, you can actually then take that main melody and you can kind of like use that as a new sampling source. And what I'm doing now is I'm just adding a little bit of space in between these like notes now to just give it a little bit more breathing room. And a lot of times I fill it out with a little bit of reverb. And so if I was using this same scenario, but let's say I'm trying to make a beat that still has room for a singer or a rapper, one thing I might do is I might play around with like where it's sitting in the mix with the pitch, right? So lower. The declicking mode, if you change it to, I believe is generic? Yeah, the clicking will go away. So sometimes this could be cool for just putting in the background. So if I just turn this down, all of a sudden it's like a background, like little counter melody. as you can see, you can do a lot with this. Now I want to open up some specific projects, right, and show you guys like what a polished experience looks like, because this is me just fucking around real quick. Because essentially when I'm doing something like this, sometimes it takes a minute, sometimes they come quick, but you're taking a lot of time to like look for stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's really what I'm doing. That's why I love using loop stems, actually more than I like creating original stuff, because it plays an advantage with the way I produce. Loop stems are amazing. That's why like Cymatics, every single loop has all the stems to it. I can't even fuck with the full loop because I just don't know what to do with it. It's too like filled out. But when I can take these individual loop stems, I can essentially resample them. And to be honest with you, this is actually very similar to the old school guys with the MPCs, if you really think about it, when they were linking up different parts of different records over to a track and remaking it. This is like a FL Studio, you know, newer way of doing that. So we're gonna dive into a couple projects where I've polished this off a little bit more so you can see what you can do with it. All right, guys. So in this example, I want to show you how to take a Beyonce acapella and flip it into something cool. So first off, real quick, let me play you what this record sounds like. All the sauce is actually right here in this main vocal lead. Look, all I did was I just did the little slicing trick. If you're wondering why these little lines are here, it's just because my blending mode is actually on crossfade. So if I just take a little piece and I'll show you where it came from. How many of you guys recognize that song, right? Let me go ahead and just reset the pitch real quick, reset everything. Ooh, right? That is literally the basis of what I chopped out for this one into this little guy. Right? And all I did was I took this thing and I started just doing that same shit, like slicing it up little pieces, and I was using this tool and I was pretty much just shifting around, like looking for stuff. And I love the outcome. And then this beginning part, it's just a pitch down version. This project, I really like how it turned out. I wanted to show you something like Beyonce Halo, how you could take it and turn it into something kind of like this. But let's go into one more. Okay, so for this second beat here, I wanted to show you an example how you can actually chop up the guitars. Here's actually a melody loop I was working on. I'll go ahead and play it. I'm gonna mute the original guitar. I'm gonna mute the vocal, and I put in a new guitar just to show you, because I want to chop it around. And we're gonna use that same technique here to make something new off this main guitar, and it'll sound like we're playing some crazy shit. Okay, so cool. As you can see, we chopped it up. I actually brought down the volume quite a bit, added a little bit of reverb, and just did some EQing out of it to make it really like a background counter melody. But as you can see, you can chop up guitar samples and they sound completely different from the original. But a couple things to keep in mind here. One, like these are percussion samples, right? So imagine like you can do the same shit with percussion to find weird pockets, right? You can do the same shit with even MIDI files, right? You can, in theory, slice up the MIDI files. You can just do a lot with it, okay? So I wouldn't like, don't limit on what you think you can do it with. Anything inside here, if you're trying to flow and you're just trying to find different pockets for different things, or if you're collaborating with a friend, or if you're using Cymatics stems or something like that, it's really, really good. Full loop is okay if you want that old school chop sound, but a lot of times what I found is there's so much in the loop. That's why I like to grab the actual stems. I think you can do actually a lot more with it. So quick takeaway here at the end, if you go to Cymatics' website, you can actually find a shit ton of free samples, right? Everything from guitar samples, vocal samples, anything like this. I would highly suggest just going to grab a bunch of free stuff and then trying this stuff out on your own. We actually have a free download vault. You just put in your name and email, and then there's just grab the beta packs. The beta packs are really solid insights into our big production suites. But anyways, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little technique. I was excited to share it. And if you guys have any questions about the technique, I will answer every single soul in the comments. So feel free to leave a comment. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. Peace.